For me, it started on the 27th of November 2008, which is a day that's very difficult for me to forget. And that started with Lieutenant Michael Fussell activating a pressure plate, which then functioned in an improvised explosive device. The ensuing explosion killed Mick immediately. This was at night in Afghanistan. Minds freeze, minds freeze, minds freeze. That is the universal descriptor to all infantrymen and special forces that you're in a minefield. And the idea is that you freeze because if you move just a little bit, you'll activate a secondary explosive device. I thought at the time that my legs had been blown off, and so I went through this very brief moment of decision making, which is, I've heard minds freeze, so there might be a secondary device, but if I don't move to make sure I don't bleed to death, I'm going to die anyways. And so that simple statement really, really frightened me.
If we keep sending people to war, there will always be people suffering with PTSD.
And there's depression, there's anxiety, there's social isolation, there's cognitive functioning, having memory problems, not being able to sleep, all of these other things. They just want to get their life back.
Well, I knew in my mind that 9 Golf was Mick, but I bloody well knew who 8 Alpha was, and that was me, and I wasn't dead. And when you have a series of very familiar voices coming over the radio telling you that you are dead, that can have a traumatic effect on your psyche.
If I didn't have Prince, my life would be totally different. I wouldn't be doing work trials, I wouldn't be putting myself out into the community to try and get better. I wouldn't be doing a lot of things. I'd be at home, just pottering around the house. I'd be quite hermity, as you'd call it, I guess.
I met Luke months ago. I got an email with a CV attached, and I looked at the CV and the experience the individual had, and I went, hey, this guy's good. I was actually quite happy that the guy with the dog was actually this very qualified, experienced person who could add value to the company. It's just that he sometimes needs the dog. And I didn't have any hesitation about Prince being in the workplace at all. All of the team here are veterans of the ADF or the partners of ex-servicemen and women.
Having Prince helps me out a lot, and obviously with the other veterans that are there that all have their own sort of demons or issues. Having him as almost an office dog, not so much my dog there, really, helps out everyone. He's more of a people person than me, I think. I come into work there every morning and the first thing everyone does is say hello to Prince. 2011, I was found unconscious in the rec centre at Tarankout. Upon waking up, I was in the resus room and was told that I was pulseless for about 2.5 minutes. I was obviously in a state of shock and what just happened. I saw an American cardiologist and all the specialists that I guess the American Army can throw at you. And I spent a week just recuperating and went back to duty with my mates. But from that day and being told that you pretty well died, everything's been different.
We often forget as a society that we send young men and women to basic training for 8 to 10 weeks to change their identity. They go in there as Sally and Bill and George, and they come out Private Smith, Airman Smith. And so we spend that time to smash out their civilian identity to make them into a tool of the state.
It can be really tough for returning service members just with the transition from military to civilian lifestyle. It can also be really tough because if they're struggling with PTSD, they're now not able to do a lot of the things that they did before. They want to get out and they want to, go to sporting events and go to movies and to do things with their families and enjoy those moments, but they're not able to.
Imagine growing up, being something, and then all of a sudden, in a blink of an eye, it's gone. This is a complete and utter change in your identity. I honestly believe that loss of identity can be one of those massive precursors to a mental health problem.
So how is Yumi doing as far as identifying the different physical stress cues?
She's doing really well, so if I'm sitting and my legs start shaking, she'll come and place her head in my lap and interrupt me.
Prince comes from a program called Operation Canine through the Royal Society for the Blind. The program's fantastic. The trainers they've got, Anne and Sophie, are just like second to none. The effort they put in to giving veterans like myself dogs like Prince, it's 100% valuable to our life and our sanity as well.
Find the keys.
Operation Canine is unique because the RSL and the RSB are collaborating. So two organisations that do seemingly quite different things have come together on this program.
The difference between a companion or a pet and an assistance dog is that assistance dogs have to do specific tasks. So our dogs are trained as recognizing different cues that someone's getting stressed or anxious, and they come up and they interrupt it.
Yes.
Good girl, Verdi. It may be that they misplace something and we have the dog search for that item. It may be that they're taught to wake someone up if they're having a nightmare.
Anxiety, depression, insomnia. PTSD is actually a change, a physiological change in somebody's brain. So it might not happen to everyone, but if it happens to somebody, it's that physiological change that needs to be reversed. There are always going to be a portion of people who suffer particular traumas in war, and that those traumas have a lasting effect on them. PTSD is an illness that people may be living with for a long time, but it doesn't need to define who they are and limit their potential to have a great life and a fulfilling life.
I wouldn't have been in here 4 months ago, to be honest with you. Having Prince, yeah, it lets me come into places like this, unfamiliar shopping centres and restaurants and stuff, with the safety blanket that he is.
When we go out, we get a lot of interaction. They're really inquisitive about the dog in the shops or in the cinemas or in the supermarket. And you get a lot of questions.
So I'm a veteran, I've got PTSD. So he helps me with my anxiety and my depression and all that kind of stuff. I get my freedom back. I can go out, I can do things with my wife and my young son.
Yes, what a good girl.
I've been delighted to have been part of the program that's made this difference to Luke's life. And I know that there's been some changes for him that has enabled him with his wife and young child to live a much more fulfilling life.
Sometimes it's love at first sight. We had that happen in our last class where one of the veterans saw the golden retriever Sophie and just fell head over heels in love with her, and it was wonderful because we were actually hoping that would be the match that was made. And it was just a few minutes after the training session that he was texting me saying, "Oh, I love all the dogs, but that golden retriever, there's something special there."
That's a good girl. The moment I first set eyes on Sophie, she came out with the biggest grin, the biggest beautiful bound. I'm here, I'm going into work. I thought, wow, look at that dog. Where's the jacket? Go get the jacket. Good girl. Find it, get the jacket. Get the jacket. Good girl. I was a combat medic. I served in the Vietnam War. When the war finished, the war actually started. It began in one's own psychic, if you like, in one's own head. And that carries on for the rest of my dying day. The memories and the actual incidents that occurred then were those that are so different to normal day life. When you come back to a society, particularly in the days of the Vietnam War, the society had turned in on itself and wasn't sure about where it was at. It hadn't matured as a nation. And the veterans themselves were lost and became lost, and it took many, many years for them to form associations and groups to support one another. It's only in the last 12 to 18 months that the assistance dog program I have found and have benefited from because of the very good work that the Royal Society of the Blind and the RSL have done to make that available to veterans. Tight spaces has always been a problem, particularly elevators. I'd avoid them as much as I could. In fact, I hadn't been in one since Vietnam. And yet, one of our final training sessions, we were taken to a shopping centre, and I tried the lift, and I felt as the door shut, this elevator could jam. Then I looked down with Sophie there, and she just looking up, panting, was smiling, and I thought, it's not going to jam because she's going to get me and we're going to get out. And we did it, and I did it with Sophie. Show good manners. I'm an old soldier, and she looks after me.
Did you fight in the war?
I went to a war, yes, yeah.
Did you win?
No one wins in a war, no. There is a strong relationship between Sophie, the dog, and Trevor, the veteran. There is that mateship. You'd do anything to make sure her quality of life was as good as the quality of life she's providing for me. She doesn't deserve not to have the best. She's a good dog.
If you're a dog lover and you want a friend that can be with you all the time, it's definitely something all veterans should look into. With Prince, we're getting back to a bit of normality. He's changed my life for the better, for sure.
After all these years of struggle and strain, to be able to be part of the program, I'm absolutely honoured is the word I'd choose. I'd encourage the nation to stand up tall in the saddle and say, our veterans are worth looking after them, and we have a program that's imperative that works and should be endorsed. The people should dig deep to support. And I'm grateful to Anne. This nation's grateful to her. She's the best export that South Dakota's ever had. Yeah, that's so good. Hey?